Welcome back, Gorehounds and Christmas movie fans. 'Tis the season for some beatings. That was loud. Violent Night is the latest addition onto the badass Santa subgenre, and I say this without a hint of sarcasm. Not only is it the best of its kind, it is an instant holiday classic. Of course, taking place on Christmas Eve, we see a team of mercenaries breaking into a wealthy family's compound and taking everyone inside hostage. But this troupe of Scrooges isn't prepared for one surprise combatant, Santa Claus, who is on the grounds and is coming to town on their asses. As a frame of reference, if you watch the trailer for this film and see all the references and inspirations from Die Hard and from Home Alone, and it just doesn't work for you, then the film itself won't work for you, because what you see in the trailer is what you get in the film. And I mean that as a glowing compliment, because from the trailer, not only was I excited for this film, it exceeded all my expectations. It has this surprising earnestness to itself that makes the characters and the story really charming, to the point where if you take out the violence, which is a lot of this film, it would genuinely work as a heartwarming Christmas classic. And there's still a lot of heartwarming elements in this, like this little girl asking Santa for help and him just stepping on to help this girl who is on his nice list. The rapport between Santa and Trudy here is genuinely delightful. I love seeing them constantly pulling for one another, and how perversely, in a twisted way, Santa's unleashing of violence on mercenaries with some of the most creative kills in recent memory is kind of what makes him believe in Christmas again. There's just something absolutely hilarious about that, while also being heartwarming as you're watching people being literally chopped to pieces and made into human goo on screen. And this relationship between Trudy and Santa is not only the best aspect of this film, it was the most surprising, because this badass Santa really isn't badass. He is just Santa, and he just so happens to step up to the plate and finds himself in this overwhelming situation that he never asked for. So it takes all the best lessons from Die Hard, where you found John McClane not being like this superhero guy. He was just a dude and finds himself in way over his head, but he commits to save people, to save his wife, to save Nakatomi Plaza. This Santa, he's just here to deliver presents, and he just so happens to be caught in the mid of this heist. And that's what makes it so compelling. It's seeing this Santa Claus, wonderfully played by David Harbour, who has lost his mojo, who has lost his optimism, who has lost his jolly festive cheeriness, and seeing him getting a little bit of that back, because this one girl that still believes in him is asking for his help. It's genuinely very wholesome amidst all the nasty violence that David Harbour sells so freaking well. And when it comes to inspirations, Violent Night thankfully never feels derivative. It just takes all the best elements from the films that inspired this take on Santa. Obviously, Die Hard with the one man versus an army of mercenaries in this single location. You have Home Alone with the kid that helps Santa and is creative with what she has at her disposal, be it to distract some of the mercenaries or really to go to town on them. And this kid is bound to be a psychopath, like Kevin McAllister eventually, I'm sure, went on to becoming. But also there's a little bit of nobody, not so much John Wick, because this Santa can get the shit beat out of him. He gets a fair fight every now and then through this film before he goes completely wild. So he feels very human. This film does not attempt to make Santa this omnipotent being. It keeps him magic and whimsy, as he loves to get his cookies and he appreciates when they are homemade, but he doesn't really care for milk. He rather just chug down a bit of whiskey with his cookies. and that's his preference. But I really like how this film twists around the formula and just makes it feel fresh in its own unique way. And that's when you really can admire a script, when it commits itself to twisting and reinventing the Santa mythos, but also keeps itself true to what made it special in the first place, what made us fall in love with it in the first place. This film just strikes the perfect balance where you see a Santa Claus going through this existential crisis where he's been doing this for so long, he doesn't even know why he does it anymore because nobody appreciates him. But it's all about the believing in Santa that gives him power. And that's just so true to the most heartwarming and most wholesome, most innocent Christmas classic. That there's a respite of that innocence here. There's a sense of that childlike wonder. But then it gets contrasted by all kinds of glorious, nasty, gnarly violence as Santa just goes wild on this group of mercenaries. And you should see this one with the crowd. It had some of the biggest laughs, some of the biggest reactions. One moment you're going, oh, that's really sweet. Another, you're going, oh, and you're wincing at the screen because some of the punches, some of the hammering, some of the shots in here are absolutely gnarly to witness. The carnage candy was not cut short on this one. And David Harbour sells it all fantastically. He's just a true badass on screen. A man bun wearing Santa Claus that just goes wild with a hammer on his hands. But everyone else really does a good job too. John Leguizamo is wonderful. There's this tongue-in-cheek sense to him as he's just this guy who basically hates Christmas, but then every time he's confronted with the presence of this dude who claims to be Santa Claus, you just see everyone in his crew believing, and then he just outright refutes it. And it's just so funny. The film is really hilarious, whether you're talking about the mercenary crew, whether you're talking about the wealthy family. There's a little bit of Eat the Rich satire with this protagonist family who is being held hostage. There are these sects within the family. There's this rich grandmother, and then there's this couple who's going through a bitter separation, not really divorce, and their daughter is the one who calls upon Santa because she still believes. And then you just have this other part of the family which is the daughter of the grandmother, and these self-absorbed narcissists. One of them is a teen who wants to be a social media influencer. Another one is an action movie star who's in way above his head. And he's just the perfect encapsulation of self-absorbed celebrity. There are literal lines. There are actual lines from celebrities in real life. Once you see the film, you'll know exactly which lines there are. So there's a lot that the film is working with. It's giving a ton of the violence. It's giving a ton of creative kills straight out of Home Alone, but in the best way possible. The film has this really wink to the audience sense to it when it comes to the Home Alone sections, and it gets really gnarly. Again, I cannot oversell how fun the violence in this one is. And unlike Home Alone, you don't cut away. You don't deliver over-the-top reactions. You just see everything go down as it would. And you wouldn't want to find yourself in those specific situations. So like I said, I was excited for this film from the moment the trailer came out. But what the film delivered was much better than I expected. It was everything I wanted and a little bit more. It was more of the violence. It was more of the Christmas spirit. It was more of the comedy. And it just works on several levels. Now, does that mean that it justifies its 2-hour runtime? Not really. I think I would have cut it just a tad bit short, maybe at 1:50, maybe at 1:45. There are sections in this film where nothing's really happening and they're just stalling between moments of violence to give exposition in the early stages of the film. But the more it unfolds, that second hour just goes by so fast because by then the film has just kicked into high gear. It just stumbles and staggers a little bit on the early stages as it needs to put all the pieces in place. But once it does, it's wild. Again, I cannot emphasize enough for you to see this one with a crowd, whether they know what they're in for or they don't. This is one I'm going to show everyone around Christmas because I just want the Christmas spirit filled with buckets of blood. But before I dive into my final thoughts on Violent Night, I need you to start a conversation about it in the comments below. Are you excited for Violent Night, and what is your favorite badass Santa movie? And if you're enjoying this review, I have an entire playlist for all the 2022 movies I reviewed right up here. If you're enjoying this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy something else on the channel as well. So if you want to talk more movies and TV, this is the place to be. So consider clicking that subscribe button, and you won't miss any future conversations on your favorite movies and TV. Violent Night is an absolute bloody delight. Gore and cheer blend gloriously in this carnage candy cane filled festive spectacle. David Harbour crushes it, genuinely becoming one of the all-time best on-screen Santas. It's a jolly, badass riot that takes all the best lessons from its obvious inspirations. See this one with a crowd. I'm giving Violent Night a B+. And that does it for my take on Violent Night. Let me know if you're adding this to your yearly Christmas watches with your family. I'll be curious for their reactions. Thank you so much for watching. Big thanks to my channel members for always supporting the channel, and I'll be back very soon. So until the next one, love each other and love the movies.